Hi, my name is Amber. I am the community director for Pathway to Hope. Pathway to Hope is an online community of women who have been affected by emotional abuse. Here with Patrick Doyle, we actually got some audience questions in that we're going to go over. One of the first questions that came in, Patrick, is what kind of personal work should we do after writing everything down to ensure that we don't travel down the same road with another or same emotionally abusive person?
It's a question I hear a lot. How do I prevent myself from getting into the same mess relationally that I was in before?
Yeah.
There's a couple things there I'd like to talk about. One is, generally speaking, the reason why women feel like they're going to make the same mistake is because when you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, what the abuser is doing is telling you you're the problem. So over time, women begin to believe they're the problem. So when they look into the future to think about another relationship, they're in their own mind, they believe that they will make the same mistake, right? Well, that's a lie. The only reason why you made the mistake this time is because you did not pay attention to your gut. I've talked to thousands of women, and every one of them that have been in an emotionally abusive relationship say the same thing. There were signs. I ignored them. I rationalized them. I minimized them. I justified them. I spiritualized them. I denied them. Okay? So the number one way that you can stay out of another bad relationship is obey your gut. But here's the problem with your gut. It'll give you information that you can't prove. You just know. So paying attention to that feels like a cliff jump. Like you're talking to somebody and your gut says they're not telling you the truth or they're not healthy or whatever, and you're like, and then your mind kicks in and you're like, well, because and I shouldn't, and that'd be too mean, and I'll be you start to rationalize all those things. And so the key to staying out of danger is obeying that gut. And what I say to people all the time is, look, I'd way rather that you be late to the party of trust than early. The damage you can do to yourself by denying that and trusting someone too quickly, devastating. The damage that you do by making somebody wait is actually good. They get to prove it. And here's the other thing. Our culture teaches women, particularly Christian culture, teaches women to trust. Just trust. I am here to say, you should be from Missouri. It's the show me state. No one gets trust unless they behaviorally, over time, prove it. And so if you pay attention to your gut, it's going to signal to you the bad behavior. If you trust that, you're going to move away from that. One of the things I say to ladies all the time, their number one skill to not getting in a bad relationship is learning to say no and then moving along. Right? But that's not how women are trained in our culture, and particularly not in the church. So pay attention to your gut, obey it, and learn to say no.
So are there situations where a woman does find herself in another emotionally abusive relationship?
Absolutely.
And do they tend to stay just as long as they did in the other relationship, or what do you see the difference? Is there a change in that relationship?
Yeah, well, generally what I see is like, I was in the first relationship for 25 years. And then the next one, I figured it out in a year, or I figured it out in 6 months. You want to see an incremental improvement in you trusting your instincts. The other thing I see ladies do is they just avoid it altogether. They just stay alone. But I'm of the opinion that being alone is not a healthy thing. I mean, it's better than being, if you have a choice between abuse and alone, I choose alone. But I don't believe humans are designed to be alone. And so it's also a tragic waste. Every 99.9% of the abused women I've worked with are beautiful people that are just been layered over with trauma. And they believe they're the problem because that's what abusers do, is they blame, avoid. And so dealing with that internal belief that you're the problem is also a key factor in you getting out of that situation and staying out. When you believe that you're worthless and no good, you have toxic shame, you are abusable. If you believe you're worthy and you're valuable, and it doesn't matter what anybody says or what you've done or what your history is, you believe you're valuable. If that's the case, you become what I call abuse resistant. So that means you have to trust your instincts, your gut, to see your own value. When you stop trusting that, you're believing other things, right? So I definitely see women get into those situations, but I always see them picking it up quicker. And learning to say no, like I said, is a key component to being safe.
So sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to really start recognizing and trusting your gut, right?
It does.
Which is why they end up maybe sometimes in those unhealthy situations, but they don't. We don't usually stay in those as long.
Right, and that's also why I really believe having a support group of people around you that really understand, really truly get it, no judgment, that can help you vet your instincts. Like when you say, I think he, blah, 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 and they're like, oh yeah, that's right. Boom, then you can act on it. But when it's all just internal, that toxic shame is a very powerful force. It's very loud.
Yeah, it's true.
And so let's just understand that instead of trying to act like it's not a big deal. I mean, toxic shame controls people in a profound way. I mean, let's just take somebody like, say, I don't know, Michael Jackson. Was he talented? Yeah. Was he rich? Yeah. Was he famous? Yeah. Like more than most people ever, right? But that didn't stop him from killing himself with drugs, right? The reason why he took those drugs was because he was trying to mask the shame, right? The shame of being abused by his dad and being told things about himself that were not true. And, you know, there's lots of evidence for that. So that's just one example. So, but that example is like a reality that no amount of fame, money, success, no amount of external things are going to fix that. And that's why I see a lot of people that, particularly I've talked to lots of very successful people, they get to that point of success and they like look around going, it's not better. In fact, you feel twice as empty because you climb the mountain, you get to the top, you expect euphoria, and really what you have is disappointment. And so that is about the internal value structure. And that's the thing that prevents you from being in emotionally abusive relationships, and what prevents you from being self-destructive to yourself is feeling your actual intrinsic value. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other question that came in, she says, I have a question about defensiveness. I seem to have a lot more of it than I thought. Is it related to gaslighting? Can it be a result of it? I don't want to blame it on my soon-to-be ex. I know I'm accountable for allowing it. Is there a correlation, though?
Okay, so a couple things that people may not understand. One is gaslighting. It's a very difficult term because it comes from an old movie. But in essence, what gaslighting is when someone is trying to get you to doubt your perceptions. That didn't happen. That's not what I said. You don't understand. And so when you're in a relationship long term where someone is undermining your perception of reality, defensiveness will come, right? So it's really important to identify that there is going to be defensiveness that comes from being undermined on a regular basis by someone who's supposed to care about you. And in your frame of reference, you're like, they're supposed to care about me, but their behavior doesn't. So there's all of that mental gymnastics of trying to figure out reality. And this is, I see this in ladies all the time. They start to despair of like their own ability to understand reality. When in actuality, their gut is telling them something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. And then the person they're with is rationalizing, minimizing, gaslighting, denying, and it's maddening. And so you're like confused about reality. You're exhausted. You're emotionally stressed out, right? So defensiveness to me is not the issue. Many times when I hear ladies say they're being defensive, what they are doing is trying to articulate the difficulty they see, but they're doing it with someone who never takes responsibility. It's not really defensiveness. It's trying to get something to resolve. Just one thing. Can we just resolve one thing? No, not with someone who has profound denial and is an abuser. Every abuser has profound denial about reality. That's how they survive. Okay? So, and again, I would say the same thing. If you trust your gut, you're going to know what's defensive and what's not, right? But most women in an abusive relationship are trained to say nothing. And if they do say something, the cost is so high, it's not worth it. So then they're told they're the problem. So I would say that in that case, I'd have to know more of the circumstances and know if you're even being defensive.
Yeah, I was wondering that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but, feeling like it's your responsibility is exactly what the abuser is saying, no matter what the issue.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. This last one, she gives a little bit of a background here.
Okay.
She said, one person in the church whom I have shared vulnerably with on several occasions and who I thought was a supportive friend said to me of her and her husband, we are ministers of the gospel and in covenant relationship. Cannot choose one over the other in a relationship. We care deeply for both parties involved and we are resolved to intercede and minister to and for all parties involved as they are willing. Otherwise, we will just continue to pray.
Mm-hmm.
She says, what about when members of your church, also friends, know of at least some of the abuse and support you as far as separation and even divorce, but never do anything at all in terms of calling him out of the different kinds of abuse?
Mm-hmm.
What does one do when church becomes an unsafe place because your abuser is there and everyone just treats him like everything is hunky-dory?
Mm-hmm. Well, I wish I could say that I've never heard this before, but this is an all too common reality.
Yeah.
So principle number one, if you have garden variety difficulty in a relationship, that makes sense. When you're talking about abuse, someone being systematically destroyed by the other, no matter how covert it is, because she's talking about somebody who's covert, well-liked in the church, blah, blah, blah,
right.
blah. And that's the worst kind, is the guy who's the Christian, who looks good, who's a horrible person behind closed doors, but everybody likes him. He's the worst kind.
Mm.
But here's the problem. In an abusive situation, neutrality, which is what that church is claiming, we're ministers of the gospel and covenant. Neutrality is to choose the side of the abuser. And this is where I see churches face plant all the time. They do not have the courage, they do not have the will to confront and set a line.
Mm-hmm.
So they choose the side of the abuser by being neutral. There is no neutrality in abuse. If somebody came in with a black eye and was beaten by their husband, if they chose neutrality, we'd all be like, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what they do all the time with the covert. And if a guy's well-liked, I can't tell you how many hundreds of pastors and elders and leaders I have seen do tremendous harm. So if somebody's a leader or has a position, I don't care. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
What means something to me is your behavior, right? But their behavior is cloaked. This is part of the problem. So neutrality is a lie. Okay? It's a rationalization. And this whole spiritualized blah, blah, blah of we're ministers of the gospel and we are covenantal. Those are all just smoke screens, okay? You didn't see Jesus being covenantal. That wasn't the way he rolled. So, but in our day-to-day, churches all have their own approach. God bless them. But in my experience, the vast majority are failing because they don't take seriously the covert abuse. They want to rationalize it. And here's the other thing. Churches, and look, I was a pastor, founded, started, and ran and preached in a church that I founded for 9 years. And I've been in the church 30 years. I've been an elder. I've been in ministry in different organizations. The reality is that the church has idolized marriage. And that might come as a surprise to some, that marriage could be an idol. But I don't believe that God sees marriage as something that should not end. I think God is the one who instituted divorce. And there's biblical evidence for that, and I don't want to go to it. I don't want to have a 35-minute long explanation of that. But the truth is that God is the initiator of divorce, because sometimes necessary endings are effective for the health of the person. God doesn't hate divorce. He hates people mistreating each other.
Well, why would he hate something that he created?
Exactly, right? So when people are mistreating each other, and look, we all know that some people are not going to change. And the reason why we know that is thousands of years of history. So it's a delusion to say, oh, the Lord can fix it. While that is true, it doesn't always happen. Why did both of my parents go to their graves in their addiction? I don't know. But it doesn't change the fact that that's what happened. And I've treated thousands of addicts who've gone to their grave. I've treated thousands of addicts that didn't. Okay, I don't know why the outcome is what it is, but to lie to yourself and say that the marriage should be maintained no matter what is a spiritualization and a harm of the people in it. It's just as harmful to the abuser to not say anything and to not to confront them.
Yeah.
That's very unloving in my opinion. Will they change if you confront them? Probability is no, because their denial is so thick, they don't hear anything. They just rationalize, minimize, justify, spiritualize, and they move on. Okay? But the damage that you do by saying nothing is profound to the person being abused and their children. So that scenario is tragic.
Yeah.
I really wish the church would get a grip on it. But as long as we see marriage as an idol and it's something that cannot be broken, that will continue.
I think it's interesting at the end of what the ministers, one of the last things they said was, otherwise we will just continue to pray. I'm just wondering, like, what your opinion is on what that's actually translated. Like, what does that actually mean?
What that translates into, we're going to do nothing. We're going to pray. We're not going to say anything to him. We're not going to say anything to you. We're just going to pray. And they also put it on the parties as they want to, as they're interested in. Well, as a shepherd, which is one of the things we talk about as pastors, the Bible uses the term and the analogy of shepherds, right? Well, the shepherd had a staff. And the staff had two purposes. One was to hook a sheep and pull it off a cliff or from danger. The other was to beat a wolf. Right? The shepherd would sleep in the doorway so that anything that came in had to go over him. Right? That was protection of the sheep. This is something that's been lost, is that we don't protect the sheep. We just, everything's fine. We just pray. No, sometimes you got to whip some wolf ass. That's what's required.
Yeah.
And that's loving.
Yeah. To
the wolf. So that whole do nothing and pray thing is, I don't think really all that helpful.
Well, it's more about them than the person being harmed.
Well, this is the other thing. Generally speaking, people in general are more concerned about their comfort than your well-being. And in church, we do that. We take care of ourselves by spiritualizing and say, I'll pray for you, but we don't actually do any practical intervention.
So would you say that I'm going to pray for you is translated in that your situation's making me uncomfortable and this is how I'm going to look or sound caring for you as a way of dealing with it?
Many times that's exactly what it is. And I believe that those people have good intentions.
Yeah, right.
But,
I mean, I've done it.
Yeah, so have I. But good intentions don't mean anything.
Yeah.
So here's the other thing I see all the time. My kids used to try this with me. Hey, Dad, well, they're in trouble. And they're like, well, Dad, I didn't really mean to do that. I meant to do this. And I'm like, that's great, son. I'm really glad you didn't mean to do it. But tell you what, I'm going to give you credit for what you did.
Yeah.
And abusers, this is one of their main tactics. Don't look at what I did. Give me credit for my intentions. They're always trying to get you to look at their intentions and not see their behavior. But in my world, behavior is what I'm going to look at. If I see your behavior and I determine it's not healthy, that's I'm going to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the 2 rules I always talk about, right? Rule number 1, no crazy allowed. Rule number 2, I decide what's crazy, right? All my life being brought up in an abusive world, one of the things that happens in an abusive world is you lose your choice.
Yeah.
So you choosing who you're going to let into your life is a path to healing.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of always just letting everybody in and taking what you got, taking it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
For that.
Yeah. Look forward to more questions.
I was going to say, yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to email us at info@patrickdoyle.life. Patrick is also the founder of Pathway to Hope, which is the online community for women affected by emotional abuse. We have conversations about subjects like this within Pathway to Hope all the time. In the forums with the women too, and they give great insights about their own experiences.
They're the experts.
So if you're a woman and you're looking for a safe community, Pathway to Hope, try it out. And if you have any questions, you can email us about it too.
Thank you.